This is the frightening and true story of the horror I experienced from a haunted video game. Now call me what you want, but I always have loved Nintendo games. Some of my favorite games that I've played include Super Mario World, Pokemon Ruby, The Legend of Zelda, Skyward Sword, and Super Metroid. But my all-time favorite video game is Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest. I love everything about DKC 2. The characters, the levels, the music, and the bosses are simply magical. I've completed the game time and time again, and I know every secret in the game. However, a few weeks ago, I found an Easter egg that I have never seen before. After seeing this, I'm not sure whether I like Easter eggs anymore.
It was finally the day that I moved into my new apartment. I just landed a job in New York City for a publishing company, and I had just put all of my furniture into my new house. I thought it was an apartment.
Wait, what? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hold on a minute.
The stress of fees and rent were killing me, so I decided to take it easy for the afternoon. I went to play my Wii and mulled about, deciding which game to play. I wanted to play Diddy's Kong Quest, my favorite game of all time, but I realized that I had not yet bought any of the DKC games on the Virtual Console, as I was never able to configure the internet connection properly. Now able to, I checked the Wii shop, but saw that the games were not available for purchase. I decided to instead take a walk through the city and see if I could find any retro video game stores. After about an hour of walking, I found a store called Retro and Rare Video Games. The store had a very run-down look, and I shuddered as I saw it. I was going to pass the store by, seeing as how it looked so terrifying, but I saw in the window Donkey Kong Country 2 and a new SNES. I stopped in front of the store, my mouth agape, probably looking like a monkey. I rushed into the store, which was dingy and dark, and inquired about the game. The old man at the counter, whose name was Tom, told me that the game was free, as long as I bought the new SNES. I told him that I would pay for the object, which he then said was free. He even gave me a free banana-colored controller because I was such a huge Donkey Kong fan.
I bolted into my apartment without hesitation, hardly remembering to lock my door as I did. I unplugged my Wii from my television, and I set up the SNES. I pulled the DKC box out and examined it, noticing how the vibrant colors seemed even more vibrant than I remember. The red popping out with a blood red-like shine. Thinking nothing of it, I inserted the game into my SNES. The game made a satisfying clunk as I popped it into my console. I walked to my fridge and grabbed a root beer, my favorite soda, as the game booted up. When I came back from my kitchen, I noticed that the system had frozen on the Rareware logo. Thinking the old man sold me junk, I hit the console lightly, hoping that it would somehow fix my problems. When I did, the logo began to warp. The jingle became a disturbing crunching sound, like bone breaking. And the Rareware logo became a blood-like red. A scream that sounded an awful lot like a Kremling was heard, but then the game went back to normal.
The title screen showed up next. It appeared normal, unlike that awful screen I just witnessed. The familiar title screen brought back memories of my childhood. I felt so happy, but my happiness soon came crashing down. The title warped into another frightening image for a few seconds. The letters were blood red, reading Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kreepy Quest. Diddy appeared frightened, running away from a figure in the background. Diddy looked so scared. He was crying and beaten up. I felt bad for the young monkey. The figure, upon closer examination, was Donkey Kong, one of my favorite video game characters. DK looked a little funny, though. DK's familiar tie was replaced with a noose made out of barbed wire, as if he was hanged by some Kremlings and his brown fur was stained with blood. He held a severed arm of a Kremling, but his most terrifying feature was his eyes. They were solid black, save for red pupils. He was crying tears of blood, but his blood-soaked mouth made him look terrifying.
Suddenly, without warning or my input, the game started. I heard a crashing sound from the game, and the game started. I was playing as Diddy. my #1 favorite video game character. Just like usual, I was in a level I did not recognize, which was funky, because I knew every level of the game like the back of my hand. I moved to the right expecting something to pop out and defeat me, but nothing happened. I traveled through the factory, seeing dead Kremlings everywhere. When I say dead Kremlings, I don't mean defeated ones like when you jump on their heads. I mean dead. They were brutally murdered by something big, and with many of their limbs removed, skulls crushed, or intestines wrapped around their neck. The blood was very realistic looking, as if actual animals were murdered. Diddy began crying tears of blood as he saw the horrific scene, which was probably a lot for such a young character to handle. If it didn't occur to me that characters in a game could act like this, as they were programmed.
I first thought the game was hacked by the old man Tom. I continued to play Diddy's Kreepy quest. At the end of this odd factory level, I reached a throne. This throne was probably that evil King K. Rool's throne, who taken over the Kong Island. Did he murder these people? His own troops? He truly is a sick person. I made Diddy walk over to the throne, which had a broken crown on it. I touched it, figuring it would end the level. It did. The next level was even more disturbing. The level was a cave. I don't remember any cave levels like this. The cave had crude drawings in the background that looked like they were MD in blood. Pictures of a gorilla-looking beast were in the background, destroying the crocodile-like figures. I figured that these were paintings done by the Kremlings who thought Donkey Kong was evil. Boy, was I wrong. The level continued on. Skulls of Kremlings and those weird rat guys were everywhere in the level, along with some bits of flesh and brain. These horrific trails continued on forever, as the level hadn't even ended, even though I had been running for nearly an hour. Diddy was sobbing and wailing at the point, obviously disturbed at this point. The horrible blood was everywhere. Suddenly, I heard a scream from the game. I could no longer control it at this point, as if it was a giant cutscene. King K. Rool stumbled onto the screen with a black eye, a missing hand, and a broken leg.
He looked horrified and scared out of his mind, begging for Diddy's help. Diddy shrieked and ran over to the other side of the screen and hid behind a rock. Diddy watched in horror as an evil-looking Donkey Kong appeared, with barbed wire around his neck, blood in his fur, and a machete in his hand. DK grabbed the pitiful Kremling by his tail, smiling with his stained and bloody tail as he cut off the poor crocodile's good leg.
I guess Donkey Kong has a tail now.
The character let out a horrific shriek, wailing for the pain to end. That's funny, I thought. Video game characters in this game can't speak. DK began brutally beating the crocodile with a rock he found nearby. He broke his limbs that he didn't cut off, smirking as he did. He stopped beating Cruel a minute later, with a horrible smile. He lifted up the leg he had cut off and began eating it, right in front of Cruel. I thought you monkeys only ate bananas! He cried out like a simpering fool. This is the only way to keep invaders off my island. I am the ruler of Congo Bongo Island. DK said in return. Turning his attention back to K. Rool, he grabbed the lizard by his throat and picked him up, grabbing his head with his other hand. Diddy looked horrified.
DK ripped the head off the crocodile, grabbing a nearby pike. He stuck the severed head on the stick, screamed with fury, and ran out of the cave. I was able to control Diddy again, and so I followed the ape out of the cave. The level ended. The last level I had played was the Kremling ship. I followed a trail of horrified Kremlings who begged Diddy for mercy. I was confused as I hadn't remembered this from my past experiences. I continued into the helm of the ship and saw Donkey Kong. He was toting the stick with the head around, proclaiming himself the sole ruler of the island. Donkey Kong dropped the stick when he saw Diddy, grinning like he was evil or something.
He grabbed the poor monkey and he said,
I'll make an example of you to show my family I'm the only one who should rule.
Diddy screamed out for me, specifically, and asked me to turn off the console. Donkey Kong said, no, I have to do this.
How is it that your Donkey Kong sounds more like
K. Rool
than fucking Donkey Kong?
Suddenly, the power in my apartment was cut, except for the television, and I was horrified to watch the bloody scene. DK brutally murdered his nephew in front of his family and friends, who bowed down and begged for mercy. DK began laughing, and he turned his attention to me.
I'll come for you next. I'll paint your new apartment with your blood.
I was scared, but I couldn't see or find my way out of my apartment. I tripped over my television and fell over, huddling and hoping DK wouldn't kill me. I don't know how he could get me, but I was sure he could. I moved out and back with my parents for the time. I don't know when it will be safe to ever play video games again, but I hope that Donkey Kong doesn't kill anybody anymore. I don't know who or what was hacking DK in this game, but ghosts and video games do not mix.
And that was Diddy's Creepy Quest.
Wow.